This is a warning that some of my answers today are kind of cringe. Hey guys, I'm Cassandra. I got into every school that I applied to, including all 8 Ivy League universities. Today, we're going to be talking about USC. Now, keep in mind that though the questions are old, my advice on how to write these kind of essays, YS essays, short answer questions, all of that still stands. Good writing is good writing. So with that, let's get into my essays. Instead of wasting time here, me reading them to you, I just put them all on my website for you to read for free. So check out the link below. Go there now. I'll give you a couple of minutes to read it.
A few minutes later.
Okay, and now that you're back, let's dive into kind of overall hacks that I think work for these kind of essays, plus the essays that USC will require you to write this year that I didn't have to answer, but I've guided a lot of students through this. So the first question I had to answer on the USC app is, what is something about yourself that is essential to understanding you? Now, I'm a big proponent of reusing content for different schools, right? Because if every school asks you to write 5 essays, oh my God, that's so many separate essays to write. So you got to be smart with how you are recycling your essays. So for this one, I just chose to reuse an activities essay that I've been using in some of my other schools. You can also check them out on my website, essays for my other schools. And some of you guys might know this is my infamous spy essay. It's basically where I talk about being a journalist, but I describe it to the reader like I'm a secret spy. So this allows me to have fun with a pretty normal topic, right? Maybe there are a lot of student journalists out there, but I put my own spin on it to make it entertaining for you as you read. So I get hyper specific about what I do. That is my biggest piece of advice for activities essays is, why are they asking you this question if you are already putting your activities on your activities list? Why give you space? It's because they want details that your activities list simply doesn't have the room for. So think about the impact that you made, the human contact, the friends, the relationships that you built through your activities. That's the kind of stuff that doesn't show up in your resume, for example. Okay, so the next 2 questions I had to answer were, describe how I would pursue my interests at USC, academic, why us, why major kind of thing. And then for me, I had a specific question related to Annenberg, which is the School of Journalism. So for that, here's my general advice that doesn't just apply to, the why us USC essay, but anytime you are writing a why us essay. So one tactic that I used is that I pictured myself on campus. So I have these really specific details, like how I'll lie belly flop on the dirt as a director at USC. I write about how I'll be taking part in a secret USC game where reality ends and reality is capitalized. I don't even know, honestly, I don't remember what I was writing about, but at that time I did a lot of research into USC, right? And so I was picking up on things that only really USC insiders or people who did their homework like me about USC would know. I'm demonstrating to the admissions officers hey, I know your school. I have looked into your culture. I've looked into your traditions. Here's what I can picture myself doing. I also write about the values. So I looked not only into traditions and activities that these schools offer, but also what do they stand for? What do they value? A school like USC, and especially a school like Annenberg, journalism related, media, certainly has values and characteristics that they want their students to embody. So I looked into that and I wrote about championing those values in my undergrad and my postgrad work. Okay, another big tip for writing the Why Us essays is don't just name drop classes or professors, right? Anyone can do that. I can just open up the catalog of any school's list of classes and then just name a few. But that doesn't demonstrate anything. I would try to incorporate, yes, the classes that you're interested in taking, but tell us how you will personally benefit from taking those classes. So you have a goal, right? Presumably, we as in, if I'm an admissions officer, I'm admitting you, a student, with a grand goal of some sorts. Your goal might be a career thing. You might want to become something like a doctor or an engineer or a writer or president, whatever. Or it might be a little more open-minded, like you want to serve people or you want to continue learning about the universe. You're a lifelong learner. Whatever that end goal is, you have to pick the classes to write about that will help you in pursuit of that goal. So for example, I referenced a class that studied Toy Story and then a class about television as a progressive medium. So these are specific USC classes, all to aid my journey to fight for Asian American representation in media. That is my big goal. So anyone can name drop classes, but you got to make sure that the classes that you are choosing to reference are relevant to you and say something beyond like, oh, I just think that this is interesting, haha, right? It has to add to your profile. It's saying something about you, the fact that you chose to mention these classes. So in the recent cycles, you guys have also had to answer like a Dornsife question or one that's like specific to whichever college that you're entering in. Most of you are entering into the College of Arts and Sciences. So that question is about 10 minutes, like what would you do with 10 minutes and the attention of a million people? Like what would you talk about if you held the attention of a million people? So here's my advice based on past experiences of helping students get into USC in recent years. This does not have to be an objectively big issue. It just needs to be important to you. And that the same goes for any kind of challenge essays. People freak out like, oh, I have nothing traumatic that happened to me in my life. Nothing is big. You know, they're not looking for big. They're just looking for important. So if it matters to you and it's important to you, it will matter to your reader if you write it well. As long as it's personal and relevant to you, like it is worth talking to a million people about. That's what I personally believe. If it affects you in some way, whether big or small, like that's what makes it interesting. And so the best public speakers out there, they want to get across the what, right? They have a message, their core message. Maybe it's believe in yourself or have no fear or work harder, whatever. But that main message might get lost in translation because so many people are speaking about that message. So how do they get their message across? They focus on the how/why should I care, which is their personal story. So if their personal story is tracking with the what of their message, that's how you get 10 million people's attention. So for you, think about something that is important and relevant to you and expand on how that affects maybe even your daily life, your personal connection. That is what is going to sway me on why this topic is so important, much more than you just telling me that this topic is important. And finally, here's a hack for writing those short answer questions. We're talking super, super short. My biggest piece of advice is to not to overthink this. You know, the admissions officers say that often, and I agree with them. So why are there these questions in the first place? Well, think of these questions as are you human, like a CAPTCHA, you know, when you visit websites and they're like, are you robot? Are you human? It's kind of like that, but for you, like making sure that you are an interesting human being with somewhat normal, somewhat interesting, somewhat quirky interests, and that you don't live under a rock. And that if we, as the admissions officers, admit you, you're going to be like a fun person, interesting person to have on campus. So don't overthink this. And in my application, I hardly spent any time at all on this, as you can see from my very short answers. But if you do have the brain capacity for it and the time for this should not be your first priority. Get to those meatier essay questions first. But if you do find yourself with time and capacity for this, well, I do think that this is an opportunity to expand a bit on your answers and provide some personality and insight. For example, what is your favorite snack, right? That's a question on this year's cycle. That's an opportunity to link like a memory to your snack. So perhaps it's like an Oreo marshmallow because it reminds you of the time that you like did it over fire, yapping with friends past midnight, right? Or maybe it's a cultural dish that means something to you. So in each one of these questions, like there, obviously the word count and the character count is very limited, but you do have the space to maybe give the why behind your answers. Like it doesn't really matter if your favorite snack is Pocky or your favorite movie is Captain America: The Winter Soldier, but why did you choose those things as your favorites? Like I think that's more interesting than what those things actually are. I want to critique a couple of my short answers because I think if I were submitting today, I would be like, girl, you need to change that. And so describe yourself in 3 words. I put visionary, optimistic, and passionate. I don't think I would put passionate nowadays just because it's such an overused word. Like every student applying for college is passionate. You know what I mean? And so I don't love that. I would look for more specific words or more slanted words. And I think if I were answering the dream job question today, I would make up something that like doesn't exist, because it's very, very clear from my application, like what my dream job is: to be a storyteller, advocate, blah, blah, blah. I would probably say something like, I want to be Barbie or I want to be an astronaut, which is not anywhere within the realm of possibility based on, what I was studying and what I intended to major in. I would just give myself a little more freedom with that. I would also expand on my dream trip. Like, I just wrote Korea, but like, why Korea? What am I interested in seeing, experiencing, doing? So these are just some ideas on how you can expand on these very, very short answers. I know they give you limited words, but use it to the max, right? If you have the capacity for it, right? Again, this is not your first priority. This is your very last priority, but it is an opportunity to show off some of your pizzazz. All right, guys, that's it for me. Thanks so much for watching. And if you guys have schools that I have not yet broken down, please leave that in the comments. I do listen. The whole reason why I'm posting this video is because one of my TikTok followers asked me to finally review my USC supplements, and I just was sitting on them for so long, finally put them up for you guys to see. So I do listen and I do read your comments. If you have suggestions of what I should do, leave them below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.